The alien captain thought he was sending his final distress signal. His ship was surrounded. His crew was dying, and the pirate fleet closing in had never lost a battle. But during the transmission, one tiny mistake changed everything. The signal missed its intended destination and traveled across the galaxy, until it reached a species nobody expected to answer: humanity. At first, nothing happened. Then thousands of unknown warships appeared out of hyperspace. The pirates stopped laughing, the aliens stopped breathing, and when the humans arrived, the real nightmare began. Because hidden inside the pirate fleet was a secret so terrifying that it would force the entire galaxy to ask one question: why had humanity been preparing for this war for hundreds of years? Nobody in the galaxy expected the distress signal to reach Earth, and if they had known what would happen afterward, they never would have sent it. The stars above the Orion Fringe burned cold and silent as the Vayari science vessel Dawn Seeker drifted through deep space. Captain Selthar stood on the bridge, staring at sensor readings that made his stomach twist. Something was following them. For 3 days, the unknown contacts had remained just outside detection range, always there, always watching. The Vayari weren't warriors. Their civilization was famous for research, diplomacy, and exploration. Most Vayari had never even seen combat, which was exactly why they were terrified. "Captain," the sensor officer said quietly. Selthar looked over. The officer's skin had turned pale. "We just confirmed visual contact." Every conversation on the bridge stopped. "Show me." The main display lit up, and suddenly the bridge felt colder. Massive warships, dozens of them. Black armored hulls, heavy weapon batteries, Predator designs. The symbol painted across their hulls made several crew members gasp. The Car Dominion, space pirates, raiders, slavers, killers. Across known space, entire colonies disappeared whenever the car arrived. No one knew exactly how large their empire was, only that fighting them usually ended one way: death. The pirate fleet accelerated. Fast, way too fast. Selthar's heart dropped. They found us. The first pirate transmission arrived seconds later. The message contained only one sentence: "Power down your engines and prepare for boarding." Nobody on the bridge spoke, because everyone knew what boarding meant. The Vayari carried valuable research data, advanced technology, scientific discoveries worth fortunes on the black market. The pirates weren't here to negotiate. They were here to take everything and kill everyone. "Emergency jump?" the navigator asked. "Impossible," another officer replied. "They're already jamming our drive systems." The captain clenched his fists. The Dawn Seeker wasn't built for battle. Its weapons were laughable. Its shields were weak. Against a pirate fleet this size, survival wasn't even a possibility. It was a fantasy. The pirates opened fire. The ship shook violently. Warning alarms exploded across the bridge. Several systems instantly failed. A second barrage followed, then a third. Hull integrity dropped, 40%, 37, 32. The crew began exchanging frightened looks. They all understood. This was the end. Selthar slowly turned toward his communications officer. "Send a distress signal." The officer nodded immediately. His hands flew across the console. Nearby Allied systems would receive the emergency transmission within minutes. Maybe someone could help. Maybe. Then another pirate volley slammed into the ship. The bridge lights flickered. Sparks exploded from multiple stations. The communications officer lost control of his console for a split second. Just 1 second. One tiny mistake. One wrong digit entered the emergency routing code. Nobody noticed. Nobody had time to notice. The distress signal launched into deep space, crossing sector after sector, passing countless stars, missing its intended destination completely. The transmission traveled farther than anyone imagined, far beyond Vayari territory, far beyond known rescue networks, far beyond the edge of civilized space, toward a species most of the galaxy barely acknowledged, a species many still considered primitive, a species from a dangerous little world called Earth. And 27 minutes later, humanity heard the call. 27 minutes after the distress signal left the doomed Vayari vessel, it arrived in the most unexpected place imaginable: a remote human listening station orbiting beyond Pluto. Officially, Station Ecominus 7 existed to monitor deep space anomalies. Unofficially, It was where humanity listened to the dark. Most shifts were painfully boring. Operator Jake Morrison was halfway through a cold cup of coffee and scrolling through old baseball highlights when a warning alert suddenly flashed across his console. Unknown extraterrestrial transmission detected. Jake blinked, then laughed. Yeah, right? The alert remained. His smile disappeared. He sat up. The system had never produced a false positive, not once. His fingers moved quickly across the controls. Signal origin, unknown, language, unknown, encryption, partial, priority, extreme. Jake's stomach tightened. He immediately opened a secure channel. Command, this is Ecominus 7, a tired voice answered. Go ahead, Jake swallowed. I think we just received an alien distress signal. Silence. Then, what? Within 6 minutes, the entire station was locked down. Within 30 minutes, military intelligence was analyzing the transmission. Within 2 hours, the message reached Earth. And that was when things got interesting. Very interesting, because humanity wasn't new to the galaxy. At least, not anymore. For over a century, humans had quietly expanded across hundreds of star systems. Trading, exploring, building alliances, smiling for cameras, playing nice. Most alien civilizations viewed humanity as ambitious but harmless. The friendly newcomers. The galaxy's eager rookies. Nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew what humanity had spent the last 100 years preparing for. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, inside the North American Unified Defense Command, alarms echoed through a secure briefing chamber. Generals, admirals, fleet commanders, intelligence officers, all stared at the same screen. The translated distress message. The room remained silent after the recording ended. The message wasn't complicated. Unknown civilian vessel, under attack, immediate assistance requested, probability of destruction imminent. One admiral finally leaned forward. Can we verify it? An intelligence officer nodded. Yes, sir. Definitely real? 100%. The room became quiet again, dangerously quiet. The kind of silence that happens right before history changes. Finally, a younger general spoke. They didn't contact us. No, another officer agreed. They contacted someone else. A few heads nodded. Technically, humanity wasn't obligated to respond. This wasn't their territory, not their people, not their problem. Then an older admiral named Marcus Kane stood up. Every conversation stopped. Kane was a legend. A man whose name was known throughout every human military academy. When he spoke, people listened. The admiral looked around the room. They're civilians. Nobody argued. They're being hunted. Nobody argued. They asked for help. A politician cleared his throat. They didn't ask us. Kane looked directly at him. His expression never changed. Does that really matter? The room fell silent, because every person present already knew the answer. No, it didn't. Not to humanity, not when innocent lives were on the line. Kane slowly reached toward the command console, then pressed a single authorization key. A red notification instantly appeared across military networks throughout human space. Operation Guardian Spear activated, and suddenly, the sleeping giant woke up. Across hundreds of hidden shipyards, reactors roared to life. Massive dry docks opened. Weapons systems activated. Fleet commanders received encrypted orders. Thousands of warships began preparing for deployment. The largest military mobilization in human history had officially begun. Far away aboard the Dawnseeker, Captain Selthar watched another pirate barrage rip through his ship. The hull groaned. Several crew members were injured. Life support was failing. Hope was fading. No rescue fleet had arrived. No allies appeared. No miracle was coming. At least, that's what everyone believed. Then the sensor officer froze. His eyes widened. His breathing stopped. Captain, Selthar turned. What is it? The officer stared at the scanner, unable to speak. Finally, he whispered 4 words, words that sent chills through the bridge. Something just entered hyperspace. The captain rushed over. A single contact appeared, then another, then 10, then 50, then hundreds. The scanner started filling with signals so quickly that warning systems struggled to keep up. Nobody on the bridge understood what they were seeing. But one thing was certain. Whatever was coming, it was enormous. And it was heading straight toward the battlefield. Fire. The bridge of the Dawnseeker fell completely silent. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Every pair of eyes remained locked on the sensor display. The contacts kept appearing. Hundreds, then thousands. The system was becoming overloaded trying to track them all. Captain Selthar felt a knot forming in his stomach. Identify them? The sensor officer shook his head. I can't. What do you mean you can't? The signatures don't match anything in the Galactic database. That answer made things worse. Much worse. Unknown fleets rarely meant good news, especially fleets this large. Around them, the Car Dominion pirates noticed the new arrivals as well. Across dozens of pirate vessels, commanders began demanding answers. Nobody had any. Then space itself seemed to crack open. Massive hyperspace tiers appeared throughout the sector, one after another, like wounds being ripped into reality, and from those openings, the ships emerged. Selthar had seen warships before. He had studied military vessels from dozens of civilizations. Nothing prepared him for this. The lead ship alone was larger than anything he'd ever witnessed. Its dark gray armor stretched for kilometers. Heavy weapon batteries covered the hull. Rows of missile silos lined its sides. Every inch of the vessel screamed one message: do not mess with us. Then more ships followed. And more, and more. The Vayari crew watched in stunned silence as an entire armada entered the system. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, battleships, thousands of them, a moving wall of steel and fire. One pirate commander finally transmitted a challenge. Identify yourselves immediately. For several seconds, no response came. Then every communication channel in the sector activated simultaneously. A calm human voice echoed through space. This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the United Human Defense Fleet. A pause followed. Then came the words that made even the pirates uneasy. You are attacking civilians. Stand down now. The pirate flagship erupted with laughter. The car had spent centuries terrorizing entire sectors. Who were these humans? Some newcomers trying to play hero? The pirate admiral activated his transmitter. Leave this system, or die with them. The transmission ended. The battlefield became eerily quiet. Aboard the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Kane stared at the message. Several officers exchanged glances. One finally asked, "Orders, sir?" Kane sighed, actually sighed, as if the pirates had just become an inconvenience. "We gave them a chance." The officer nodded. Seconds later, encrypted commands spread throughout the fleet. Across thousands of human warships, weapons systems activated. Missile bays opened. Railgun capacitors charged. Targeting computers locked onto enemy vessels. The pirates fired first. Huge streams of plasma crossed space. The attacks slammed directly into the front line of human battleships. Explosions lit up the darkness. The pirates cheered. For about 3 seconds, then the smoke cleared. The human ships were still there, still moving, still advancing. Their shields barely flickered. The cheering stopped immediately. Then humanity fired back, and hell followed. Railguns unleashed tungsten rounds traveling at impossible speeds. Missile swarms flooded the battlefield. Laser batteries carved through pirate formations. Entire car ships vanished. One cruiser exploded so violently that nearby vessels were ripped apart by debris. Within minutes, pirate casualties skyrocketed. The battle wasn't close. It wasn't even fair. The humans moved with terrifying precision, like predators that had done this 1,000 times before. The pirates began retreating, then panicking, then dying, but just when victory seemed certain, every sensor in the system suddenly screamed. Warning alarms exploded across every bridge. Human, Vayari, pirate, everyone saw it, a hyperspace signature, bigger than anything ever recorded, far larger than an entire fleet. The tier in space expanded, and expanded, and expanded. Then something emerged, something so massive that stars disappeared behind it. Captain Selthar felt his blood turn cold. The pirate crews immediately started cheering, because they recognized it. The black monster that now entered the battlefield. The ship responsible for destroying worlds. The legendary flagship of the Car Dominion, the Devourer. A moon-sized dreadnought, the deadliest warship in known space. The monster had arrived. And for the first time since entering the battle, the humans stopped advancing. Admiral Kane stared at the gigantic vessel on his screen. The bridge waited nervously. Then slowly, a grin appeared on his face. Not fear, not concern, a grin. The admiral stood up and cracked his knuckles. Then he spoke 7 words that sent chills through everyone listening. Finally, now this looks like a fight. The arrival of the Devourer changed everything. One moment, the Car Dominion pirates had been losing. The next, they were celebrating. Across the battlefield, terrified cheers erupted from pirate vessels. Their ultimate weapon had arrived. Their invincible flagship. Their nightmare machine. The ship was enormous. No, enormous wasn't the right word. The vessel was a floating apocalypse. Its shadow stretched across thousands of kilometers. Its armor was layered so heavily that most civilizations didn't even possess weapons capable of penetrating it. Entire cities could have fit inside its hangars. Captain Selthar stared at the giant dreadnought in disbelief. Every military academy in the galaxy taught stories about the Devourer. Worlds burned because of that ship. Governments collapsed because of that ship. Entire species had surrendered the moment it entered their systems. No fleet had ever defeated it. Not one. Then something strange happened. The humans weren't panicking. They weren't retreating. They weren't even worried. Admiral Marcus Kane simply folded his arms and studied the massive warship, as if he were evaluating a chess piece. Nothing more. The Devourer's primary weapon began charging. Energy readings instantly spiked off every scanner in the system. The weapon was infamous. A planetary annihilation cannon. 1 shot could erase continents. 2 shots could crack moons. 3 shots could destroy civilizations. The giant cannon fired. A beam of pure destruction exploded across space. The blast struck a human battleship directly. The entire battlefield lit up. The Vayari crew gasped. Several pirates cheered. Nobody could survive that. Nobody. The light finally faded. The human battleship was still there, damaged, scarred, missing sections of armor, but alive. The cheering stopped immediately. The silence that followed felt terrifying. Even the pirates looked confused, because for the first time in history, the Devourer had failed to kill its target. Aboard the human flagship, Admiral Kane smiled. Not bad. Then he looked toward his tactical officer. Let's stop playing around. The officer nodded. Moments later, new orders spread through the fleet. Thousands of human ships suddenly altered formation. Destroyers moved outward. Cruisers advanced. Carriers launched fighter swarms. Battleships opened firing lanes. Everything shifted with flawless precision, like gears inside a giant machine. Then the human fleet split apart, and what had been hidden behind them finally appeared. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. Then scanners began reporting dimensions. The numbers were impossible. Crew members throughout the sector started staring in disbelief. The object emerging from behind the fleet wasn't another battleship. It wasn't a carrier. It wasn't even a dreadnought. It was something else entirely, something bigger, much bigger. The vessel stretched across dozens of kilometers. Massive armored sections covered its surface. Thousands of weapons lined its hull. Its reactor output alone exceeded entire fleets. Words slowly appeared on screens throughout the battlefield. Vessel identification. Vanguard-class Titan, the Vayari captain whispered. What is that? No one answered, because no one knew, not even the pirates. The giant vessel slowly moved forward, like a mountain waking up, like a sleeping giant opening its eyes. Then its central weapon began charging. Power levels instantly climbed, and kept climbing. Higher, 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 until every sensor in the system started malfunctioning. The Devourer's crew finally realized something horrifying. They weren't facing humanity's strongest ship. They were facing humanity's response fleet, and apparently, those weren't the same thing. The Titan's spinal cannon reached full power. Admiral Kane calmly gave the order. Fire! The universe exploded with light. A beam brighter than a star crossed the battlefield. The Devourer's shields vanished instantly. Its armor evaporated. Its internal reactors detonated. For one brief moment, the legendary warship remained intact. Then it split directly down the middle. The explosion illuminated half the sector. Shockwaves rolled across millions of kilometers, and just like that, the most feared ship in the galaxy ceased to exist. But as celebrations began across the human fleet, an intelligence officer suddenly stood up. His face had gone pale, very pale. Sir, Admiral Kane turned. What is it? The officer swallowed hard, then looked directly at him. While scanning the wreckage, he hesitated. The bridge became silent. "What did you find?" Kane asked. The officer took a deep breath and delivered the words that made every smile disappear. The car dominion wasn't expanding. Silence. They were running. The room froze. A chill spread through the bridge, because if the car dominion had been running, then something out there had scared them, something powerful enough to terrify the very monsters the galaxy feared most. And according to the recovered data, that something was already moving toward known space. Fast. The bridge of the Resolute was silent. Not the calm silence of victory, the heavy silence that comes right before a storm. Admiral Marcus Kane stared at the recovered data from the wreckage of the Devourer. The car dominion wasn't conquering worlds. They weren't expanding territory. They weren't building an empire. They were running for over a century. And whatever they were running from had finally reached the edge of known space. The galaxy celebrated while humanity prepared for war. 3 weeks later, the first reports arrived. Entire star systems had gone dark. No distress calls, no survivors, no debris fields, just silence. Worlds that once contained billions simply disappeared from galactic maps. Then the enemy finally appeared. The first images shocked every civilization. The ships weren't built. They were grown. Massive black structures that looked more alive than mechanical. Some were larger than moons. Others stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Their surfaces moved constantly, like living flesh, like nightmares given form. Ancient records identified them with a single name: the Void Swarm, the species that had wiped out civilizations long before most current empires even existed. The species responsible for driving the car dominion into desperate retreat. The species that had never lost a war. Across the galaxy, governments panicked. Emergency summits were called. Evacuation plans began. Military leaders openly admitted they couldn't win. Some species surrendered before the fighting even started. Then they all looked toward humanity and asked the same question. What do we do? The answer arrived from Earth 12 hours later. A simple galactic broadcast. Admiral Kane stood behind a podium. His face was calm, almost relaxed, which somehow made it scarier. The enemy is entering known space. Everyone listened. Their numbers exceed all projections. Nobody spoke. Their objective is extinction. Fear spread across billions of worlds. Then Kane smiled, actually smiled, and every military officer watching felt chills, because that wasn't the smile of a man facing impossible odds. It was the smile of a man whose plans were finally becoming useful. Good. Confusion spread through the audience. Kane continued, "We've been waiting for them." The galaxy froze. Waiting for them? The admiral pressed a control panel. A classified file appeared, then another, then hundreds more. Shipyards, weapons platforms, defense networks, ancient military installations hidden throughout human territory. Secrets humanity had protected for centuries. The numbers made entire governments stop breathing. Millions. Humanity didn't possess thousands of warships. Humanity possessed millions. Entire reserve fleets activated simultaneously. Hidden shipyards powered on. Factories began producing warships around the clock. Weapons older than empires awakened from standby mode. Humanity had been preparing for this war long before anyone else knew it existed. Then Kane revealed the final secret. A secret known only to a handful of human leaders. A secret hidden for 200 years. The Void Swarm wasn't new. Humanity had encountered them before, long ago, before first contact, before joining the galactic community, before anyone knew humanity existed. A deep space probe had discovered traces of them beyond explored space. And ever since that day, humanity had quietly prepared. Every fleet, every fortress, every weapon, every shipyard. Built for one purpose, this purpose. The galaxy sat in stunned silence. For centuries they had viewed humans as newcomers, amateurs, rookies. They were wrong, terribly wrong. Humanity wasn't preparing to join the galaxy. Humanity had been preparing to defend it. Then alarms suddenly echoed throughout the command center. The Void Swarm had arrived. Thousands of enemy vessels exited hyperspace. Then tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. The stars themselves seemed to disappear behind them. An officer looked nervously toward Admiral Kane. "Sir," the admiral stood, straightened his uniform, and looked toward the massive enemy armada. There was no fear in his eyes, only anticipation. Then he gave a single order, the order that echoed across millions of human warships, the order that would become legendary throughout galactic history. Open every vault. Wake every fleet. It's finally time. Across the galaxy, ancient human armadas began moving. Forgotten fortresses powered on. Weapons capable of shattering planets came online. And deep within the darkness between stars, something even larger awakened. Something humanity had hidden from the galaxy. Something they had built specifically for this day. As the first colossal silhouette emerged from the void, even Admiral Kane's officers stared in disbelief. One whispered, "My God!" The giant object continued rising from the darkness, bigger than any ship ever constructed, bigger than cities, bigger than moons, and painted across its armored hull were two words. Last Resort. Admiral Kane smiled. The void swarm advanced. Humanity advanced. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, the greatest war in the history of the universe was about to begin.